Most people think of my contributions to education as focusing on children's literature, but that's not where I initially began with my doctoral studies. My plan was to complete a dissertation that looked at the metacognitive strategies that college remedial reading students used in reading classes, and I was really gung-ho about that topic. My advisor in graduate school, David Hayes, was very supportive of that topic. Unfortunately, I didn't stay with that topic, and it's unfortunate I didn't stay with it because I'm still intrigued by that and how people learn and what metacognitive strategies that they use. But I'm also so much involved with the topic that I eventually chose as my dissertation that became my career. And it's so ironic the way in which I acquired that topic. I was visiting friends in Atlanta and couldn't sleep, and as I normally do, I read if I can't sleep. And so I started reading a crisis magazine that's published by the National Association for Colored People. And in that magazine was an article about the Brownies book. And I literally almost jumped out of the bed as I read that article because I thought I had known the major aspects of W.B. Du Bois's life. And I was astounded to find out that he had founded, along with Augustus Dill, a children's magazine in 1920. And that children's magazine was the Brownies book. And the magazine was devoted to children of color, principally African American children. And I absolutely could not believe it. So the next day, I spoke with my friend Akiba, who's a Langston Hughes scholar, and asked her, what does she know about the Brownies book? She said, oh, I've known about it for years, and I know about it because of my work in Langston Hughes. And I thought, well, why didn't you ever tell me this? Well, I didn't know you were interested in children's books. I said, well, I am now. And so I rushed back to the University of Georgia to my advisor, David Hayes, and asked if I could complete a dissertation on the Brownies book rather than on the metacognitive strategies of college remedial reading students. And he said, if you can present me with a proposal, if you can show why this research is important, give me your research questions and your methodology, then I'll give my consent. And so I then had to create that for him. And fortunately for me, he agreed that there was a question to be researched, or questions to be researched, and that I had identified the appropriate methodology for which to answer the questions that I created. And so that was the foundation for the work that I do. And I was just so happy to be able to do that, because at Atlanta University, there was the very desk, or one of the desks, that Professor Du Bois used while he was at Atlanta University teaching and conducting the Atlanta University Research Studies. And so I literally went over to the library and rubbed my hand across the desk for good luck that I would be able to defend this dissertation proposal on the Brownies book. And it was a fascinating topic for me, because it allowed me to delve into the Harlem Renaissance and the importance of the Harlem Renaissance and the ways in which children were affected by the cultural products that emanated from the Harlem Renaissance. In the past, most of the works that were focused upon were written for and by adults. So this new aspect that Du Bois wrote for children, that Jessie Fawcett wrote for children, that Langston Hughes wrote for children, and that many of the people who were stars in the Harlem Renaissance contributed to the Brownies book, was just absolutely fascinating for me, because I thought that magazines for black children originated with Ebony Jr., and so to think that something was there in the 1920s just was a major light bulb moment for me. And that became the basis of my career, looking at the materials created for African American children for literacy, especially during the time periods in which there was so much opposition to them becoming literate, and to see what was created. That magazine led me into the other kinds of materials created for children and young adults by the community outside of the African American community and within the African American community. So I began to look at other works and what the works attempted to do. So the dissertation was a content analysis of the Brownies book from the perspective of the selected tradition, which of course was created by Raymond Williams, but has some antecedents, I would argue, in the work of Du Bois and Carter G. Woodson and some of the other individuals associated with them during that time period. That then led to me to look at what were the ideologies that you would find in these materials, and that led to the article on the Brownies book being published in the Langston Hughes Journal, and then a second article that I entitled Race, Radicalism, and Refinement, the Brownies book, and that was published in Children's Literature Association Quarterly. And what I examined in that manuscript was the ideologies that you would find in the Brownies book. And what I argued was that the magazine was intended to create what were, I call, little race men and little race women. People who would be devoted to education, social uplift, and to social change. Hence the radicalism, the refinement, and the racialization. That then led to looking at what else had been created. And I would consider my next research piece that had an impact to be an article published in the Journal of Negro Education, and that was African American Children's Literature, the first 100 years. That was also a lesson for me in conducting research. So subsequent to that piece, I've learned to not be very definitive about the first magazine, the first picture book published for African American children, or the first young adult novel published for African American children, because there's so much that remains undiscovered and in archives. I just think back to the time when I didn't know that the Brownies book existed until 1985. So, and then to discover other books published by the Associated Press that was founded by Carter G. Woodson. People like Lois Mailou Jones, the great artist who illustrated all of the children's books that required illustrations for the Associated Publishers. People, the teachers who were part of the National Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, who created texts of history books, collected biographies for children. So finding those works, looking at the content of those works, both the artistic content, the literary quality, and the information contained within those materials for children has formed the basis of the work that I do. And then there's the research that I do also on individual authors. I think I've done, not the definitive research, but have made contributions to the way in which people look at authors such as Virginia Hamilton or Walter D. Myers, and also in terms of some of the genre studies that have been completed. For example, one of the things that I noted early on that was missing from African American children's literature was humor, or a systematic focus on humor in a way in which you have within other groups, that there was a prevailing sense that the emphasis should be on the history and providing some idea of what the history was, and particularly slavery. But many children were not ready for that kind of literature, that what they wanted was something that was perhaps more developmentally or age appropriate. They wanted things about stuffed animals and their pets and their sibling rivalries and their first day at school and what happens when the tooth fairy comes. And so I had started arguing a couple of years ago in the writing that I did that there needed to be more of that kind of work in the body of African American children's literature. And happily, more of the publishing companies are responding with that. But I'm also torn because I keep going back and forth between the literacy and literature. And I think that one of the works that ties them together is an article that was published in Theory into Practice that examined conceptions of literacy held by African Americans in a chronological format. And what that research found was that there has consistently been this tension that literature is for the individual, but literacy is also for the family or the community, and that you don't own literacy, that you have to share your ability to read and write, you have to make yourself available to within the community and so forth. So that article, I think, is one of my favorites as well, and I think one of the pieces that captures the kinds of contributions that I want to make and the kinds of effects I think I've had in the field.